Welcome to Dragging These Dice's Level Up Talk. We're going to be rolling hit points for level 8 now that the party is leveled up, and a little later on, we're going to have a spoiler discussion and Q&A for the last few arcs of the series.
Did my max HP go down with my level up?
Yes,
Fuck.
because your stats went down.
You're a Fae now.
Right, they did too, that's right. So I'm like,
Yeah,
wait, why am I...
We're level 8 now.
Your constitution went down by 1,
That's
I think,
right, it
so it
did
made your
too.
max health go down. Alright, I need everyone to roll some hit points. Pebble, could you roll a d10 for me?
Sure can. 10!
Mother of God.
What's your con mod?
Plus 2. What does that equal?
I'm not sure. 12?
11, yeah, 12. Okay.
Okay. My health is now 80.
Mherren, you roll a d8.
I'm ready for the 1.
Say it. Don't say it out loud.
So, sorry.
Go for you.
That's your fault.
No, sorry.
And your con mod is a +3, so that's a 6.
You doing the health for us?
Yes. Mherren's health is now
okay.
at 77.
That's
I think we've
that's
messed
a
it up
hell
too
of a
many
lot of
times,
health.
and Peanut's just doing
Yeah,
it now.
you guys used weaponized incompetence, now I have to do this.
That's the thing you also just messed it up because my HP from the previous level was 68, which means that it would have only been 74 now. It automatically counts the Constitution bonus.
We're
every
adding it
level up.
twice.
We added
Well, yeah,
ourselves
well, the thing,
per
it's
roll when we insert it into D&D Beyond, and D&D
But
Beyond will
we
also
haven't
add
done
it on
that
top of
before.
that. That's how we've done it every time.
Well, then I have not been doing that every time.
Okay.
Again, weaponized incompetence.
That's not weaponized if you don't say that we're doing that.
Well, that's what everyone else was doing this whole time. But somehow each one of you messes it up like a different way every time we roll hit points, so I've had to go in and change things every single time. I don't know what you guys do over there. You're just adding a number to another number, but it is homebrewed a little bit, so I have you guys add the mod when you first roll it, but then D&D Beyond will also add it itself. So you guys just get a little bit of extra health. I do that because you're new players,
I just do what the dungeon master tells me and I roll the damn dice.
but we've done that every single time since the start of the campaign. However, you guys rolling your hit points so badly, it ends up not even mattering. Shello, you roll a d8.
Whoa, big numbers coming out here today. 7.
Nice.
Even 8. It's like if you roll perfect.
Yeah.
Lastly, Balthazar is just a d6 plus con mod.
Fuck. Yeah, 4 plus 1. 5. I'm still lower than what I was before the change.
That's wild.
I've lost health in the level up.
Yours is not showing up today.
That's horrible.
That's
Skill issue, to be honest.
Does that not happen to
really
everyone?
rough.
Because after like the changes that happened to Balthazar and the level up, I went down to 44 from 50.
People have been adding this to their health. I've been taking it away.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Dragging These Dice spoiler talk show discussion. We're going to be talking about episodes. It's been a while. Episodes, I think, 14 to 41. That's most
Sounds
of the
about right.
episodes we made.
Yeah.
It's like the whole. It's pretty much the last whole year. And this will be released, I think, around New Year's. So I guess it works. Let's sort it out with the thing people are probably most interested in. And episode 14 was around when Sana joined, our guest player P3. Episode 41 was around when Sana died. So that's a whole year of Sana. The year of Sana.
Year of
Sana.
I missed her so bad.
One of the questions we got from viewers was concerning the Masquerade episode. Someone asked, was it scripted? No, it wasn't scripted. There was the peel back the screen a bit. I shared a timeline of events with P3 so we can sort of just stay on time with each thing that happened. So like the freak show performance coming out was one thing in the timeline. Whenever the king comes out to make the speech was something on the timeline. When Sana first joined, before Sana joined, in the creation of Sana, I guess, the one thing P3 wanted to do was to make a character that dies. So this was a thing that's been in the cards for a while, and there's been a lot of foreshadowing towards it, some more obvious than others. some of the foreshadowing got more obvious, especially in that last episode. Yeah, I'd be curious for people to go back in the episodes and watch for things, Sana's death being hinted towards. The main one I can think of that wasn't in the Masquerade episode was the divination teacher that you all killed. Her final words were saying that blood is going to flow like wine, hinting towards the Masquerade, where one drinks wine at.
I didn't pick that up, but also I would have no way to do such a thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't have known until after the fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I feel like if people go back with like conspiracy theory goggles, that would be very funny.
Yeah, it's like finding the hidden Mickey in Disney movies. What is this, Sana dead? The whole time Sana was a character on the show, P3, me and P3 knew that Sana would eventually die. Originally, P3 wanted it to be pretty soon, like a couple episodes. But I basically talked P3 into staying on for longer to make it more dramatic and more emotional, and not just like guest character
we
dies.
Just met is
yeah.
dead. The thing about P3 being labeled as a guest character, initially he was like this special guest. I was like, oh, okay, this character is gonna be with us for a couple episodes and then she's gonna go her own separate way. And then when she didn't, in my head, that meant that P3 was no longer a guest star. In my head, I was like, okay, so Sana's here for good.
That was completely intentional.
Yeah,
I wanted P3 to stay on long enough for you guys like basically forget he's just a guest character and he feels like part of the group.
And I mean, considering most of the episodes we've made have had Sana.
When I asked P3 if he wanted to be on the show, he basically told me he wanted to make a character that dies to bolster a villain.
Oh.
And when he said that, I was like, well, I could use like Molth or one of the minor characters of just like one arc, but I'd much rather it be the biggest villain that you guys will really care about. So that's also one of the reasons P3 had to stay on for even longer, so that you guys can get back to the city to have the face down with the king. But also, I wanted you guys, before Sana's death, I wanted you guys to take down the first Colosseum, so you have that like victory before this like terrible thing happens.
Yeah,
we all did it, team.
I guess I feel like D&D is such a new experience compared to most other games I've played, where it's like nothing really goes wrong, right? Like, because if you die, you just like respawn or like go back to a save point, and then we're in D&D and it's like I dropped my guard and then Sana is gone.
Yeah. So it wasn't scripted. It was more pre-planned. Sana would die, and we had a little bit of a timeline created for that Masquerade episode where we could kind of control where people were, where things were, because it needed to be railroaded a little bit, just because we had predetermined Sana would die there. So it wasn't scripted. It was just like slightly railroaded for the dramatic purposes of Sana's death. But nothing about the conversation with the king or anything was scripted. Like me and P3 weren't reading off things to go back and forth. I had a few things in my head that I had pre-thought of, like that'd be a cool thing to say, like the whole ripping Sana's heart out, him saying like I only wanted your heart, but that actually like mattering, that was a pre-planned thing on my part. But that was actually something I was hiding from P3 himself. I was informing him that the king literally needed Sana's heart, which made a little bit of a surprise in there for P3 and the whole ordeal as well. So P3 didn't know the underlying nefarious purposes. Sana didn't want to go back for her own reasons of wanting not to marry the king. P3 didn't know that he was actually like that evil. P3 knew he would die. He didn't know as much of the exact way he would. And I did have a backup if you guys did manage to save Sana somehow, but odds were stacked against you.
I actually, in the process of writing the theme for King Einar, I put it off and procrastinated because of schoolwork, so for a good reason, but I put it off for so long that by the time I was going to write the King's theme, the episode had already been recorded. So like I had the rare foresight of knowing what the scene was that I was writing for, and that let me put like motifs of Sana's theme into the King fight, which otherwise wouldn't have happened. So
I think I mixed Sana's theme with some other music I had that you didn't write in there.
It was nice.
That was what I used when we actually recorded. Then I put in the new music in the actual edit. When the floor started to rise, the king started to show off his actual magical capabilities. But I had you do the sad version of Sana's theme first. But it was like I had you do it so far in advance. I was hoping you just like forget about it, and not think it was for her dying.
Well, you told me this will be for when P3 reveals Sana's backstory, and I was just like, okay, well then that's what it's for, and I didn't even like question it. I was just like, all right. And then it never happened, and I kept texting P3 and I kept texting you like, hey, when is this song being used? When is P3 sharing his backstory? And you were like, oh, don't worry, he will. And then it made it even more upsetting when it was used for her theme. It really tugged at my heartstrings.
P3 isn't here to talk about the actual process he went through with creating Sana, but originally Sana was actually going to be a druid, but none of the subclasses really clicked. P3 had this idea where he wanted to be like kind of like a fake class that have like trick you all, and no magic whatsoever. So we came up with the idea of him being a druid that hits things but like thinks they're using their spells, and then that led us to like Drunken Master, and we thought that fit. I had to sort of explain to P3 that even though it's Drunken Master, we can reflavor it to the drunken stuff being more of a paranoia state, because he didn't want to really play a drunken character, although I think he ended up doing that anyway.
The idea that Sana's character came from the idea of fucking with us entirely,
Yeah.
I think is
every step of the process.
Really something. You could wait on Fels instead, because there's I have beef with Lane.
Okay.
But I
Killing
don't
our
wanna-
horse.
Yeah.
The desert was a pretty long arc, longer than I really intended, but you guys met a lot of interesting characters and went to a lot of interesting places there. Most of it you were followed by this NPC Multh. Not really followed, encountered him a few times, learned some stuff about him. Multh was actually a character I had made to play in a campaign that I never ended up playing in, so I just kind of reused the character sheet for an NPC villain. He originally, I was going to play him as a good guy. I went through an interesting thought process with him where it's like, I have this backstory for him. What if instead of having him fight for good because of this, I have him take the wrong lessons and become like an evil person because of this thing that happened in his backstory? Just kind of flipping that. With his spouse dying, what if it made him hate the world instead of want to protect others, you know? So he was I think Oathbreaker Paladin and Aberration Sorcerer, I believe, which was a really interesting subclass combo. I also threw some other, since he was adapted from a character sheet, I had to like change some things like the stat block for him, so we had some other things in there he could do. Members, actually, if you're a channel member, you get that original character sheet I made for him. But
Do you actually think that you'll be playing D&D again? Do you think that you'll be like making another character for yourself at any point, or do you think that you're now just the DM person?
I hope I'm not the forever DM. I definitely like DMing a lot, but being a player is so much different. And also way more laid back. I don't have to think as much, so it's a lot better.
Yeah.
And being a player is just a very different gameplay experience, and I definitely would want to do that again. I would probably not use Multh as a character since I already kind of used him and stuff. But yeah, I have a lot of player character ideas that I would love to use and stuff. that I'm not necessarily going to use for like NPCs like in the show or anything. They're characters I specifically want to play as a PC, especially in a like longer campaign, because I've done some like one shots and like smaller stuff, but never like a long running campaign where I can really like delve into one character. One of the questions we had was, how does Peanut come up with NPCs / the world and handle long storylines? A lot of it is just like inspiration. I mean, inspiration kind of comes to you randomly, you know. A lot of times I'll just be like reading something. I'll just be like thinking about stuff at work, and an idea will just like come to me. I get a lot of inspiration from just reading Wikipedia articles. One of my favorite pastimes is just like reading Wikipedia articles. So I really like, part of this question was actually someone pointed out how Malakast Magi in the prison cell had that big iron helmet that was kind of similar to the Man in the Iron Mask, which is a figure from history. Some movies and books and stuff are based on him. So I really like weird history like that, where it's like kind of unexplained stuff where I can kind of draw my own conclusions to it and like put my own spin on things to like just like let my mind go like running with like different ideas for that in order to use in the show. But also if I'm sitting down like with the goal to world build, with the goal to like make NPCs, I'll usually like start with something small and then kind of branch that off and see where I can go with it. I'll use an example actually with the PUs, the two skunks that showed up. I started with Balthazar gave a fake name that was someone else's name. There should be some consequence to that. And also, you guys were given a person to be that person was a real person that went missing.
They went missing. Yeah.
With the added thing of Balthazar also being a bit sketchy about it in his own unique ways that Monzi does, I was like, I should have someone in the next episode show up at their door and question them about this, and I can make it seem like they're questioning about Sana, but actually about this other thing they're not really thinking of.
The PUs were really good characters. They were goofy as fuck. I loved them.
At what point did you put hats on them?
This is how I came up with the whole bit. I was like, people need to show up to the apartment to question them. I should have some sort of detective agency. I want them to be like an interesting race about like some animal. I should give them an abbreviation as their title. And I was thinking, I thought of PU, skunks, made that connection. And then I was like, I'll give them a gaydar. I thought that would be funny. And that's the whole, that's how I came with the bit.
The hats came at the end.
The hats came when I couldn't find any good art of skunks, so I had to use images of skunks from like actual textbooks or something. In order to make them not look like just regular skunks, I put hats on them so they seem like people.
Wow.
The second part of the question was, how do I handle long storylines? The whole desert thing was definitely a longer storyline than I intended it to be. So how I kind of handled that was I kind of planned it like session by session. That made it even longer because one thing would happen and I would think of like a way to extend that somehow. Usually what I do is I have like an outline for how I want like a whole arc to go, and then I kind of play it session by session, adding some things in if I think it fits. But I try not to plan too far ahead because I obviously don't know what you guys are going to do. If you come to a conclusion or do something I don't expect, I don't want to have to scrap a bunch of stuff I did and like change things. So usually I just try to plan for what's happening within the world, different like quest beats and how certain NPCs will think and stuff without planning the like end goal of how something will happen. I left the desert region pretty open-ended in terms of quests and stuff intentionally. I just wanted you guys to go through there, and I wanted to see what you guys would do with what you were given. So I really just created these places and the kind of inner workings and politics of them separately, just going on. and just wanted to see what would happen with you all storming through it. Before that, I was doing like a lot of prep work. I wanted to kind of challenge myself with this by doing less prep work. It sounds weird to say challenging myself by doing less, but sometimes when you do too much prep work, it becomes too easy to sort of railroad unintentionally because as DM, you have something planned, so you kind of navigate the players towards what you have planned, whereas if you don't have something planned, you just improv. So I wanted to try to just improv certain things more. And the desert being largely separated from the rest of the continent allowed for this more. I didn't need to plan as much of connections to other things, and I could pick and choose what I wanted to kind of follow you guys in here, like with Claudia Eyecrest sort of following you all. In the back of my mind, I was always keeping track of how long you guys would spend on things and how much closer she was getting, and sort of following where you guys had been by scrying on you along the way. It was a sort of cat and mouse chase that you guys didn't even realize until it was a bit too late. And planning it very session by session allowed for me to insert more consequences to what you guys were doing. Like, I did not expect you guys to go back to the Dawn Trotters at all, and that made for a bad predicament of Claudia. She was scrying on you, so she was able to follow you there. I found a good middle ground between a lot of prep work and very little prep work by I plan material I will actually need, like maps, whatever stat blocks I need, that kind of thing, for what I think will be in the immediate next session. Then past that, I mostly just have like an outline that gets less and less as time goes on. And it's really easy when you guys are going from town to town because I can kind of plan a whole town, and then I'm good on prep and can more plan session by session depending on what you do in that town. And then once you guys are almost done there, I can start planning the next town, and that gives me a sort of good rhythm when you guys are traveling. When you guys are staying in like one place for longer, like with the capital, it gets a bit more complicated, but my amount of prep time gets less and less further out we get, basically. I'll have actual material planned for the next session. The session after that, I may have started working on some material just in case you get there faster, but the outline basically gets smaller and smaller as we go until I just have like sort of some ideas for some towns way in the future. But I do have a very general, like, overarching thing plan that's probably more so just like the overall what's happening in the world, you know? And I'm always finding ways to connect those things into what you're currently doing. So typically things aren't gonna feel like just a random side quest you guys are going on. Most things connect, and I really want to see some red threads going up like the Always Sunny meme, you know? That's probably my favorite thing as a dungeon master. And I also love to see in the comments people theorizing about certain things. Very fun for me. Things I base on like real history or references to stuff, I usually don't make like a direct one-to-one reference. Usually I have it be like a jumping off point as just like inspiration. So like I'm inspired by like movies a lot. Like the whole Balthazar dream sequence was very Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. So I kind of have like scenes and stuff that inspire how I'll like tell the story, unless I want it to be like a direct reference to something. Like sometimes I'll reference like different literature and stuff, or I'll take like a direct quote just because I think it's interesting. In terms of real history, there was green clay that's based on some stuff.
We found out that the prince had like a zoo in like the cellar, which I thought was wild. Like that made him seem, because initially I was like, well, I kind of take pity on the prince because he obviously doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know how powerful he is. And then I found out that he has a zoo in his basement, and I was like, no, this guy's a fucking dick.
I think it's wild you guys never went inside the zoo.
Well, I feel like we would have been put.
I
put
wanted
in
to, but like we
handcuffs.
at that point we were sneaking around, weren't we? I didn't want to risk.
I had so
getting
many
everyone
wacky
killed.
D&D monsters and animals prepared.
I wanted to tame every one of them, but I was scared, man.
I love the word wacky.
Shit's scary.
Yeah, my thing with the king was that he was like, in like Game of Thrones, there's like Joffrey and stuff, who's like a young king who's like unprepared, and I was taking a bit of a comedic twist on that. Like a kid king would have like all this useless stuff, like a zoo just to himself in like the dungeon, or like you'll replace the water supply with like soda because that's what he wants. So I was just taking a little bit of a funny spin on that concept of a child king.
Swimming pool on the roof. Yeah.
Like how the middle school class president says he'll replace the water with Kool-Aid.
I mean, there's so much more in the green clay area. Just, I guess that's just like the southeast of the continent that I think is very, very interesting to me.
Yeah, the thing with green clay is that I imagine that to be a more like standard medieval region. The more south you go in the continent, magic and like wizards and stuff isn't really a thing. There's like magical beasts and stuff, but I mean that's kind of normal to them. Whereas like spells and stuff is like odd, but not much civilization down there. It's very war torn. So when you guys got to Felsenstadt, we got introduced to Boulder.
I knew that I wanted to have a fun little animal companion to be joyous with, right? But I didn't entirely know what I wanted to name her. I had a couple references. I knew I wanted it to be a beetle, mostly just because I feel like beetles and like rocks, those sort of ideas or like visual styles go really well to me.
Yeah, like they look similar, like
together.
camouflage and stuff.
Yeah, like beetles are very sturdy looking and they're very low to the ground, which is something I wanted. They're very like wide for how short they are, if that makes any sense. And I thought it'd be cool to have something like that, something less typical, like where a horse or like a camel, whatever that is like taller.
Whatever that is.
I wanted her to sort of be short and stout. I like things with multiple eyes, and I thought sort of the aesthetic of Hollow Knight, where like they have these like empty gazes that don't really look like they think anything. I really like that aesthetic. Hollow Knight was a big inspiration for it, just because I'm obsessed with that game. But yeah, I don't know. I just wanted a fun little animal companion, and I wanted Pebble to have some way to split off from the group momentarily to just sort of like think about things by herself. Of course, that was uprooted when Lane brutally murdered our horse.
Well, the
and we
tree
had to use
ant came
Boulder
first.
anyway.
Yeah, I was gonna
The
say.
Well,
bee.
yeah. Well, yeah,
The
no, but we
juggling
still
ant
could've-
came before the tree ant, to be
I still
fair.
could have traveled separately from the rest of them if I
Yeah.
had
Oh, I see what you
Boulder.
mean. Yeah, because you.
yeah
everyone needed you
yeah
now.
yeah yeah
In all fairness, that they were supposed to die before the bomb went off.
they were supposed to. Oh wow. I just wanted to have a fun little animal companion, and to have some way for Pebble to move separately from
Now
the
you've
rest of
been
the group.
loaning it to every person you meet that needs transportation, and you haven't been able to spend any time
Yeah.
with people.
not fully willingly, because everyone else is like, oh, but you could help, you could let them use Boulder.
Before Lane joined, Aaron, you said you had beef.
Minuscule beef, horse meat.
I was
if
about to say, is it
anything.
good?
No. It was
No, that's a shame.
just it was more so just the horse dying was it felt like it derailed a lot of things. It was like right after we named the horse. We
It
were
was
just
like an
getting-
episode later.
we were getting really attached to this specific horse, which I feel like normally isn't gonna happen in a D&D session where you're just like, yeah, just strap the carriage to any animal and we'll go. And there was so much we could have done with this horse, and
Yeah.
it was fucking blown to pieces.
It's such a
That's
visceral way to put a
very
horse
that
to die
is
as
very
well.
very fair. I did not expect the interaction to go that way.
Yeah.
If I had, I would have never done it.
It's not
was
just that the horse died, it's that the horse was just splattered into viscera. Like, it was so
Hey,
brutal.
to be fair, I didn't control that.
yeah. I was
Okay,
gonna
that was
say-
fully on the DM.
I never
Yeah.
expected to use those explosive barrels. I was like Googling the damage for them, hoping it didn't kill Shello instantly.
Also, yeah,
I
Shello almost
honestly,
died
at that
there.
point, I really did think that Shello was literally right next to us. I don't know why I thought that, but I
think-
genuinely thought that he was just right beside us again. Because I knew
think
that he
I-
went over there, but I thought he came back.
I think I said as you were doing your setup, where you were lining up the two bandits, you like walked over to like a hillside to line them up, had like a sniper scope on your javelin. I was like, Shell's gonna get on one of the barrels and start balancing on it and doing tricks and
Oh, that might have
Sure.
been like literally same frame type stuff.
yeah. I think
I
it was
think
like as
that
soon as you
literally- I
decided
think that must
that's
have
what you were
been
doing.
what happened.
Was there any situation where that bandit could have been killed and wouldn't have set off the explosives?
I didn't think you guys would actually fight him. I thought you guys would like just talk to him. So I don't know.
He took an aggressive tone.
He did, and I didn't. Well, Mherren didn't appreciate it.
I didn't think
more
I think
so
I
because
didn't think
backed
you'd
up my
go like
girl.
straight to violence like that.
There are bits like that where we do something because it seems like the right thing to do, especially in character, and then immediately after we have to face the repercussions of our actions. I think a lot of the time we're just doing the thing that we believe is correct.
Or at the very least, something the character would actually do.
Yeah.
Because, like,
Speaking
me
of-
personally, I would not kill those men. But
I was
You don't kill people
was-
in real life.
I was gonna say, speaking of which, I believe that guy tried to get away.
In the commotion of you guys like fighting over that happening, he like crawled into that one destroyed church.
Yeah.
oh, did he survive?
Nope.
No.
Shello went up
but
to him and executed him
Oh, okay. I can't
away from the
remember.
rest of the party.
It's
I
been a
believe
while.
that was-
Like the
that
word
was-
execute.
Well, yeah, actually, that was one
Wasn't
of
it
pretty much-
execution style?
that was one of the only times I've actually like described how Shello is killing something. That hasn't been like he just pokes him a little bit. While I was setting up for it, I was like, the party is going to hate me for doing this because they're currently arguing about the fact that we shouldn't have tried to kill that guy. And I'm going to go over there and land the finishing blow on him.
I didn't really know anything about D&D, right? Like when I started making Pebble, all that I knew was I wanted her family to be dead, which is, I know, cliche as fuck. But I was like, yeah, my family was killed in a raid of my village. Like, yeah, of course it was. Anyway, I didn't really know what kobolds were until a little while into the campaign. I thought they were just as intimidating as Dragonborn. I thought they were like these scary
Scally. Oh, Scally.
well, because I had looked them up and they looked intimidating, and I was like, oh, these guys are scary, and they're like
Oh, yeah.
Dragonborn, but they're
They
not.
are
It's
about
so cute.
intimidating as a cat
Yeah. So when
Cats can be pretty
when I
scary.
made
or a little weasel.
Lions.
and I told
Lions are
Peanut,
scary.
I told Peanut like Pebble's village was raided by kobolds, and I didn't know that that's like embarrassing as fuck for the village. like man,
In all fairness, if it was enough kobolds,
I
and
think
there's enough of them.
I think I took that and made it like kobolds and dragonborn. I think
Yeah, I think it was retconned, but it was initially just kobolds. It was
that's rough.
low key, yeah. And then we fought kobolds, and they were like tumbling out of trench coats, and I was like, oh no, I made a mistake. We got a comment about a very, very nice comment that was overall just like incredibly sweet, but it also asked if Pebble is like meant to be a queer allegory. Initially, no, it wasn't meant to be so direct. It was like, oh yeah, this is my character Pebble, and she's silly, and I love her. But like I was telling my therapist in a session about Pebble, and I was like explaining like her backstory and like all of this stuff about the character, and she was like, huh, do you think this at all relates to your experience as a trans woman? And I was just like, no, no, that would be ridiculous. But yeah, it is. I've tried to make it more of an aspect of her character as we've gone, but I don't know if I mean, I guess I'm doing it correctly because people could tell. So
going back to basing things on, like real history, whereas Green Clay was kind of based on like instances of older kings dying and their young prince taking over and putting a spin on that. In making Green Clay, I was like, there's very little royals in that area. Usually in history, royal families are huge. There's so many of them. So I kind of went with that idea with the Caecilians and had kind of a lot of them,
I found it virtually impossible to keep track of the Caecilian names.
I could not, my brain melted. I think it was just like overload all at once because we learned everyone's names all at once.
Yeah, with the Caecilians, not all of them are really meant to like be front and center. Like they're supposed to kind of be in the background sort of thing. There, if they need to be relevant to the story and stuff, I thought of like each section, like the government, each one kind of runs for if they need to be in the story at all. But most of them weren't really important except for their sort of inner family drama that was kind of happening. The most important aspect was actually like the different factions within the family, basically.
The inner family drama was very much like a high school girl. If they try and tell you about the hot gossip of what's going on, and it's every single person's name and every single person's last name, and their relation to each other, which is Jessica's whoever's boyfriend. There were the inner family drama things happening. It was like I was trying to pin names on a cork board, and all of them were tied to each other. Everyone was sleeping with each other. Everyone was going to kill each other, and I had no idea what was happening.
It was supposed to be kind of happening in like the background, like sort of the backdrop as you guys pass through town and to explain the mummy back there and stuff like that.
The story is about these two people, but first I have to tell you about these people, and that's this person's ex. And that person was going out with this person, but they don't talk anymore.
Also, I'm surprised we never actually got any comments like correcting us on our pronunciation of Caecilian, because the actual like animal is pronounced Caecilian, but I originally was pronouncing it in my head as Caecilian. When I found that out, I just thought Caecilian sounded cooler. It sounded more intimidating, so I just went with that anyway.
I did enjoy the false Hydra a lot.
Oh god, it was such a cool I loved that.
I felt as soon as the wife bit came up, I was like, I have a feeling, but I don't remember what it's called. So I spent like 5 minutes while you were describing things, searching things up, trying to figure out what it was called to see if I was right about it.
I thought it was going to be something. I still don't know a lot about D&D. I thought it was going to be kind of like, unfortunately, this is like the only reference to something like this that I know, a Doctor Who antagonist or alien thing. But what I thought was going to happen was, because of how everything was set up and how there was the deaf man who was talking about seeing faces and things like that, I thought it was going to be like spirits or like ghosts would come in at night and it would like take your memories away or something. I don't know if that's at all based in any other form of fiction. I was like, Shello's gonna wait in the corner all night and have a look around. I was like, I have to make sure I can see the window in case anything comes in. But I thought that whole area was great.
It was really cool.
Yeah, I did enjoy it a lot.
My original plan for it was something different. I actually used it for a red herring. It was going to be like what is this from? I think it's from Homer's The Odyssey island, where like they don't want to leave.
Yeah.
Also in like
that's also
yeah, also
kind
in
of
like
what I
Percy
thought.
Jackson, like Las Vegas in there. I was trying to red herring that with the bugs, like, and with their like big cocktails that they were drinking that you guys like kind of picked up on. But that was just like a red herring. That was the original idea I was going to do, where it was like directly just that. But I decided that might be a little bit too obvious because it's like so well known. And I wanted to use the false Hydra sooner rather than later, in case any of you who didn't know what that was, read about it somewhere or something. So I wanted to just like kind of get that out of the way. So I just removed the other thing, decided to use it as a red herring, and just put the false Hydra here when it was supposed to be some other town that you haven't even been to yet.
I knew about the false Hydra because I'd seen it on an Instagram reel like genuinely a year before that episode was
Yeah,
recorded.
you like DM'd it.
And I
to me.
sent it. I DM'd it to Peanut, like, dude, look at this. Isn't this so cool? And you were like, forget you saw that.
Yeah,
and then I
already-
did. Like I did forget I saw
The
it.
false Hydra affected you IRL.
It was so
For
embarrassing.
real.
I would say false Hydra encounters are kind of hard to run because the way it works is that the players can't really solve it. They just experience weird things until the DM basically wills you guys to notice it through like some railroading. So I kind of tried to make it a little bit better, where the more you guys investigated, the more obvious it sort of became, or the more closer you got to seeing it and stuff. You guys got through all of the bigger events I sort of had planned, like the menu and stuff like that. I had some other like smaller hints towards it that didn't come up, but nothing like too crazy. It mostly went how I thought it was. I thought it would be able to bang it out in like one episode, but it took about 2. But that's just how it goes.
I
That's
kind of
business, baby.
I liked how it took 2 sessions, I'll be honest.
Yeah, it was a good
Because
cliffhanger.
even not knowing what it was going into the second session of it, I was like genuinely for a lot of the session was kind of just taking a back seat and trying to figure out what it was. Like as we were, as you said, as we were investigating different places, I was trying to think more and more about what it could be, what was happening to people, and like everything that I was thinking of didn't match up in the end.
Stereotypical false Hydra counters are like usually like some small rainy town where like everyone's like shut inside and like stuff like that. I decided to like twist it a bit so it's like this beach town. So I wanted to have that like juxtaposition of like having fun at the beach while these odd things were happening that I thought made it more interesting.
It being like a little beach village made me think that it was something along the lines of, this is a place where everyone's having such a great time they never want to leave.
Yeah.
But there's actually something sinister hovering over the town. I think at one point I was like, can I look up into the sky? Because I thought maybe there was genuine people were being like puppeted by something.
Speaking of the menu at the false Hydra place, someone asked what every character's favorite food would be. I'm also curious what kind of food you guys as characters or players have experienced that you'd like want to eat IRL, you know, other than the slop.
All of the beeswax stuff, like the beef, the
Beeswax?
honey food, or well, some of it had, didn't it?
No.
Am I wrong?
Nope.
Can you eat
Oh,
beeswax?
well,
All of it had honey.
Yeah.
in
You
it.
It was all
can, yeah.
honey.
Regardless, I really
think it's
liked all
rude.
the honey-based foods.
The fun thing about making that one menu for the false Hydra place is I thought of like the hidden sentence in it first, and I had to like kind of come up with dishes that like started with that letter. So that was a lot of fun. I got very creative with it. Let me actually.
What food starts with Z?
Lychee salad, white bean dip, ahi tuna bites. I didn't want to go too simple, like just apple for A. I wanted to make it like beach food themed, like resort food themed. So coming up with like actual dishes, like being creative in that way was fun for me. I love going to fine dining restaurants. So some of these were based on some things I've actually seen on like menus of like very expensive restaurants.
Ooh la
Look at
la.
me, I'm Peanut, and I have infinite money.
I don't,
Look at me, I have a
because I spend
car.
it on fancy restaurants.
That's wild.
Just generally, what would each of your characters' favorite food be?
I like to imagine that Pebble initially hated owlbear nuggets, but it sort of became a food that's like so bad you love it.
It's a comfort food for Pebble.
It's a comfort food, exactly. It's like I'm not going to try and say that like a Burger King Impossible Whopper is a good meal. However, it's a comfort food. So I eat it anyway, and that's how I feel Pebble would feel about owlbear nuggets.
Shello likes, if we're not going for slop, I think gruel with some grime in there, like kind of maybe gristle actually.
What about the dirt though? What about the dirt?
Well, dirt. That's like a dessert. You can't have dirt every day.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
You'll become a big fat ant.
So anytime I can't think of food, I just say slop. That's why I'm giving you guys slop so much.
I think he will eat anything. I mean, he doesn't have a tongue.
His antenna tastes things for him.
Yeah, I was gonna say unless you're gonna Photoshop a human tongue coming out of his mandibles now. I think he likes how things look, but also he doesn't care how
a texture
they taste.
guy.
Well, maybe he likes gristle, so yeah, probably.
Gristle is
You
like
like
the
slime.
number one reason I'm vegetarian now.
Yeah, I have to cut it out of everything if I eat meat.
What would Mherren's favorite food be?
I think Mherren would fuck with a good curry.
Ooh. What kind of curry?
I don't know, because I haven't had any curry myself. But like I don't know, maybe I just really think curry looks good.
Japanese curry or Indian curry?
I think Indian curry.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Would you say? I'm just trying to help you along here. I'm also a very big fan of curry.
This makes me hungry.
Yeah.
I have butter chicken once a
growl
week.
again. Would you say like a I don't want to use like the actual names of things. 'Cause I don't know if you're familiar. Like a spicy kind of curry, or more of like a mild kind of creamy.
I think Mherren would fuck with both heavily. Like,
okay.
I think with her, it would be more of a thing that, like just depending on her mood, you know. But curry is like her go-to. If she had access to stuff to make curry, I think that would be her like staple thing. Okay, I just think Mherren as like a person wouldn't have really had access to many ingredients. Period. Especially because she was on the move so much, military rations. I think I can say that canonically, Mherren has never actually learned to cook. Like she can cook meat and stuff that like hunting, you know, but she cannot whip up like a pancake and have it go well.
Monzi's not here, but if I can, I'll get Balthazar's favorite food and insert it here.
I do. You know what? I think Balthazar would be a shepherd's pie kind of guy.
Yeah.
I'm Balthazar and I like shepherd's pie.
Balthazar's favorite food. I'd say with him having grown up in quite a cold climate around such races such as like dwarves and giants, that I'd say his favorite food would probably be like a nice homemade, like a reduction like stew, like of meat, root vegetables, something very like warming and like close to the heart, I guess. That's probably would have been what he would have grown up with, really.
So Mherren and Shello both multi-classed. Shello took a level into Rogue and is continuing to take levels into Rogue now. Mherren has gone into Warlock.
There hasn't been an opportunity for me to talk about it in character.
Yeah, yours is more of an invisible level up. It's not like a thing that'll show up as a character, really. Because you're going...
the further along it goes, maybe the more it will show up. But I honestly didn't even want it to be something that people knew.
Shello going into Rogue is something already in line with his character. Like it's already a thing for him, whereas Mherren is more of a hard pivot into something else.
Yeah.
Shello also doesn't already start with his subclass, unlike Mherren, but level up after this one. Maybe we'll find out what Shello's subclass will be.
With Mherren, honestly, For the most part, with the multi-classing, I didn't really have a plan going into it. Like, I didn't, as soon as we started leveling up more, I didn't plan to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this and this and this. Most of my things was just trying to look into what I thought fit Mherren most, because I wanted to go into some sort of magic to like expand on what's been happening, especially after we got to the dragon scale and stuff, and how it like resonated with her. So I wanted to sort of delve into that a little bit more, which thank you, Peanut. You did really awesome on connecting all of that with the warlock stuff. I really appreciate it because it's fucking sick. My big thing is, I don't know if it's been noticeable, but Mherren's been sort of slowly becoming an omen of death.
Yeah.
Not just in the sense of she gets into fights all the time. She usually wins her fights, but like an actual omen of death, like how a crow or a raven would be.
Death very much follows
Like a death
her.
toll.
I don't know if I've mentioned this, but the sounds I use for like the Mherren dream sequences were a death toll sound.
Yes, that is what I've been going for.
I also had a question for Lane. Despite Mherren's nature and background, you sometimes want to stray into doing silly antics that might be out of character.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily out of character. I don't think that Mherren as a person is this serious person all of the time. I think that sometimes she can be like silly. She can do stupid stuff because she's still, even though she's in her 40s, yeesh.
Life kind of stopped when she was 30.
But yeah, no, because it was always sort of thing where she does stupid shit. Like, she shouldn't have killed those people and gotten the horse blown up. But in her mind, it made logical sense, and she learned later that did not make as much sense as she thought. It didn't work out that way. She's done a lot of stupid stuff, and she does silly things, she says silly things, and she goes about some things in silly ways. But that's also, like, mostly her just trying to get creative and sort of starting to get comfortable with the people she's around. I've also tried to include the bit of her being a soldier, being more serious when she gets upset at people. Like, that sort of seriousness comes back and she doesn't really talk to people unless it's necessary or it might affect them as a group. It's fair to like think that it could be inconsistent, but I also think that Mherren just, as time goes on, has little bits of her that are more so shining through because she is sort of finding her groove around these people that she's known for, what, a month now?
Mherren is kind of slowly getting more comfortable with the people she's around, whether she intends it or not.
Yeah. I've tried to also make this thing between me instinctively reacting to things and also Mherren's character. Like, trying to... Because I don't know if you guys do this, but I do this. I sort of reflect off of the people that I am around. You know, like, yeah. I mimic different little parts of their personalities. And I think I've at least been trying to show that with Mherren, where sometimes she does make stupid jokes, and that's what Shello does. And then, I've just been trying to add little bits.
Mherren's gonna start juggling.
Well, okay, I don't know about that. She ain't got much to juggle except maybe the 18 javelins she has. I think it's like it also comes back to the comfort thing. Like, as she gets comfortable around everyone, she's gonna start reflecting those patterns more because she's not like in this box anymore.
Another change, not to class but to lineage, was Balthazar becoming a Hexblood more recently. Modzi isn't here to talk about that, unfortunately.
I was gonna say, what do you think about that, Modzi?
But
I'm Balthazar.
I mean, I can talk about it. Basically, Modzi came to me saying he wanted this moment where he, to show his grief with Sana passing, that he makes a sort of rash decision to try to make a partnership with the Hag. We did a little bit of planning beforehand, where I basically just tried to figure out what Modzi wanted from the Hag. So I gave him some options of like, he could get a new familiar, he could changed the Hexblood lineage, which is a D&D race that you can either start with it or it's something you can get later on down during a campaign, like vampirism or something like that. And I gave him a few other ideas and such. He 100% wanted to go with the familiar route. I did tell him that it's with a hag, so anything that he does with the hag is going to have some negative consequences. So I told him up front that his new familiar is going to talk, and that is the punishment. So I didn't want to just basically replace his owl with just a new bird that's not different at all. So I wanted to mix it up a little bit.
Boy, what a punishment it is.
In which DM controlled familiars or like party members are definitely like not a good thing in D&D games most of the time, because it leads to more like railroading and stuff like that. So the way I want to play Nordry is mostly just if someone else brings him up, or if I can specifically think of something not too consequential or just like a funny bit or something to do with him, I'll have him poke his head out. But most of the time, if he's not needed, he'll stay in Balthazar's robes, whatever he does in there.
I don't even want to know.
Pecks away at Balthazar's flesh.
But Monzi never told me for sure if he wanted to go the Hexblood route. He basically just told me that he wanted to try to bargain with the hag on the day of. It's interesting because stat-wise, it really helps Balthazar kind of correct some of the things he probably should have done earlier when he made the character, having him have a higher intelligence. In D&D, there's the human race, and then there's variant human. Human, every one of your stats raises by 1. Variant human, you instead take 1 free feat when you create your character. Mozzie took regular human, so all of his stats went up by 1. The smarter thing probably would have been to go for the feat thing, because then he can probably focus more on intelligence, which is good for a wizard, rather than sort of going the jack of all trades route. Doing this later in the campaign, you'll feel it in his other abilities having like -1, but with Hexblood, it boosts some of his more needed things like intelligence. I also think he can take extra proficiencies in a few things, like I think his Arcana and like Deception or something is higher now. So stat-wise, Hexblood is definitely a good route for him. Me and Monzi kind of planned that behind the scenes a little bit, but a lot of the haggling with the hag wasn't planned because Monzi didn't tell me what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
Nice.
The only thing we for sure figured out was the familiar, because we had to get the art of that beforehand.
Right.
I think there's some feat that's like Fey touched or something he could have gotten. The hag took more of the control, going towards more of the Hexblood route, which is more ownership of Balthazar for the hag. So
good.
Yep.
Our anger was real in that episode.
It was.
We were very confused. We had no clue what the fuck he was planning.
Initially, I was like, this is obviously something that Mozzie planned beforehand. And then after a while, I was like, this doesn't seem like something Mozzie planned.
Which, I mean, was technically true.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be that shocking.
a lot of these things that we pre-planned some of it beforehand, I try to make not seem super pre-planned in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to give like an illusion of it, because I think it's more dramatic that way.
I think it was when Mozzie essentially pulled a gun on the shop owner. I was like, okay, this is something that he's doing.
Yeah, that's when I was like, okay, no, I'm not letting him just run with
another
it.
thing with that is I don't think Mozzie expected everyone else to be there for this. He thought it was going to be more of a one-on-one thing, but then Shello came in with him, and then you guys asked if you saw this, and I had to be like, well, there's a window. And also, I think we had like a session or two that was canceled before that, so it wasn't super fresh in Mozzie's mind what we had talked about previously. Even still, moments like that and Mherren blowing up the horse are my favorites. Because they're the most drama. They're the most drama heavy.
Keep talking about.
It's so funny.
Because
Let's go back to when Pebble bought the woman that she had just argued.
yeah, that too.
That's
things,
another moment.
things that don't go even though we planned that ahead, we didn't plan for like you all getting mad at him. So that happening was fun to me.
So, some that you couldn't prepare for, though. To be fair.
Let's speed run some of these last Misc questions. If there's any setting material we plan not to use, since the game is like a homebrew setting, there's some things that I change. Like the bugs aren't like aliens.
Spelljammer, yeah.
Yeah, in Spelljammer, Thrycreen and like the Hadozi, I think, are pretty much aliens. In my world, they're just same as like how half-orcs exist and how these other weird races exist. They're just there. As for material, I don't really see any material I wouldn't specifically use, because I feel like anything someone wants to bring in or something I want to bring in, I feel like I can change it around to fit the setting. Some DMs, when someone asks to play like a more odd race that's not played that often, they'll be like, well, I already thought of this whole world, I can't fit that in. But I think that's a little bit lame.
How uncreative.
The only things that I wouldn't use now are specifically like technological things like Warforged or like a robot race or someone that uses guns. I would find a way to make that work if we can.
Sort of flavor it into the world, you mean?
Yeah. There's some stuff that I specifically have plans for later on that I wouldn't want to touch just yet. But for the most part, I'd always like try to think of a way for something to work. When we created this, I had like a rough kind of world building, but I wanted to wait for you guys to create your characters and then have the overall world building kind of shaped around your characters and what storylines we can tell with that. Until you guys really got out of the first Coliseum, I didn't put a ton of thought into the major world building. I had like again like a rough idea of it, but it wasn't like something I've super fleshed out. We had like the basics, like Pebble's family dying, but maybe not like fully Felsenstadt. I don't know if that was like fully fleshed out or like anything like that.
I did not expect anything to like connect at all because I assumed that we were just like a group of people who are from all over the place, and we just happen to be put into a group together. With how it's progressed, everything, most of the characters do seem to be connected. Well, I mean, all the characters are connected to the outer world, which I think is very impressive work from yourself and the other players.
How I like to do it though is I like to have you guys like obviously come up with like your character and backstory and stuff, but as the campaign goes on, I like to add things to that as your characters progress, like adding to your backstory of like something you maybe didn't consider when you like originally created your character and stuff like that as well. So now that you guys are level 8, what higher level monsters are you all excited to fight?
I'm excited to see new monsters that I don't recognize personally.
I'm very excited to see kind of creepy, scary shit, which I think things like necromancers and stuff I think are very, very entertaining. I like the whole vibe of a necromancer. If I had known that a player could be a necromancer, I don't think Shello would exist. I definitely would have.
Fair.
I would have made some creepy freak who controls and puppets skeletons.
I can't really answer this question, but I would be excited for you guys to have like another fight with a dragon. Maybe not an ancient dragon, but a dragon that's not like
a baby.
Way too hard for you guys to fight.
A baby dragon.
Yeah.
I think I could probably take on like maybe like a baby giraffe or something.
A baby giraffe?
I don't think I'm on the
That's
level of dragons
rough.
yet.
What has been your all's favorite combat so far?
Oh,
Oh, that's a good one.
Fuck. I really, really liked the big game. I know that was a long time ago and it was like before
That's
the
fair.
time that we're even talking about, but fuck. I loved the big game.
It was really fun.
I liked the fight with Claudia Highcrest. I believe that was Claudia Highcrest, the wizard lady.
Divination wizard, yeah.
I quite enjoyed that because there was so many things that were happening. There were story beats with Mherren, as well as
Yeah.
with a
Yeah.
fucking T-Rex, which I
That
thought was
fucking
crazy.
sick.
There was so many things going on. I feel like there were like so many character specific things that I feel like I didn't even notice half the stuff going
Yeah.
on.
It's
But, like,
funny
that-
because that's the same episode with the false Hydra, but I think that combat ended up being better the one after the false Hydra with her.
It felt like the false Hydra was like it's like when you beat a boss in a game
Like a mini boss.
and then you go into like the next area to be like, oh, here comes my loot, here comes all my great gear that I'm
Yeah.
gonna get, and then all of a sudden there's a way fucking harder boss in the next room and you're like, fuck, I don't have anything, I'm not prepared for this.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that whole sequence because with I like it mechanics, right? So I like different
Mhm.
stuff that being in play in battle instead of just like a straightforward, oh, you attack, they attack. I really like it that we had to do the whole mechanic of, what was it? Sana covering Mherren's ears or something.
For the Hydra and
Yeah,
for the
And then
jiggering
for the
masses.
yeah, and then when it came down to the Claudia fight, I really enjoyed like not necessarily being forced, but like having the option to have a draw back, like back out from the fight pretty much in order to do something else, but that was like of equal importance. I really enjoyed that. I like the whole sequence from there from the Hydra to Claudia. I really enjoyed that.
It felt
So I guess that's not
like,
technically
very
one fight, but you know. Yeah, I enjoy the character-driven fights.
Yeah, I definitely like doing more. It's kind of hard to do this because there's so many different like D&D monsters and less so like humanoid ones. But I more like the combats with like actual people instead of like sort of not brainless but like less sentient monsters, you know.
Yeah.
How has the show's success made you feel about your online presence? Has the show changed how you feel about your other individual content?
Sometimes when I think about the amount of people who have like commented or watched or whatever on these episodes, I get like nauseous. It is genuinely
It is kind of
insane
like
how-
crazy. It makes me feel a little queasy sometimes.
I'm very scared.
But it's a
yeah.
good thing.
I guess overwhelming in some ways. It's just different. It is very, very different.
Mhm.
I have had people recognize me, or not recognize me, but recognize the podcast after I mentioned it before, and that is horrifying. Like
Yeah,
that is
that's
actually so
crazy.
That hasn't happened to me
Um,
besides like online yet, so
it does make me more confident, I guess.
Just the amount of people who have clicked on the first episode, I think it's like at the
That
moment
shit's
is like
crazy to me.
it's like 20,000 people.
so many people have heard me drink piss.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
um,
bad wording.
I feel like people click off at that point.
It's kind of crazy to have people that stick around, people that make art.
Oh yeah.
That's always been like a benchmarker for me. If anyone makes art of anything I do, I've made it. Like
Yeah.
I am on another plane of existence. Not like in the egotistical way, in the I am in bliss sort of way.
Yeah.
In terms of the success affecting the show itself, I would say more so when we started, I tend to think about like what the audience would like to see in the campaign and stuff like that. I try to like put in stuff I think people would be like interested in, because since we get like more feedback now, I can like go off of that on how to like incorporate things in the show and stuff. For my content, since I edit all the episodes and stuff, I rarely have time for my own personal stuff, but I don't mind too much. There are times where I wish I could have had time to stream and stuff, but I find this much more creatively fulfilling than just like talking at my webcam while playing a video game for a few hours. So
that makes sense. You know, that's fair.
And also, to bring it back up, this was initially just gonna be like a one shot.
Yeah, that's the funniest
Yeah.
fucking thing. This was supposed to be such a fleeting thing, and now we're on what, 40 something.
Yeah.
And I die for every character in the show.
thank you all for watching. I hope you got some insight into the show, into us, into the characters. We have big things in store for the new year. Interesting places the main campaign will go, some cool one-shots, new and surprising stuff, and a new look for the channel. I am happy to show off our brand new logo. We love the old logo, but we really feel like this one fits the brand. It's wacky and fun, and hope it's a sign of us elevating our content in other ways throughout the year. Again, thank you for all your support. As you can hopefully tell, we very much appreciate all your love on these episodes in this series. And we're excited to see where it goes as much as you all. You can continue the conversation down in the comments, or you can join our Discord. We'd love to hear your thoughts about all this stuff as well. And we'll see you soon for the next arc of the campaign.